This is the Ted Wallison Podcast. Brought to you by Halenda's, the meat people. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. And now, here's Ted Wallison.
My special guest today lives by the motto, food feeds the body, music feeds the soul. And it makes sense, especially in his situation, since he is both an award-winning musician, having scored a Juno and SoCan Classics Award, as well as a Gourmand World Cookbook Award and a Premier's Award for Excellence in Creative Arts and Designs. He has hosted and appeared on numerous television programs, most recently Man Fire Food on the Cooking Channel, and also Wall of Chefs, which you can see on Food Network Canada Monday at 10 p.m. He is also the owner of Twist by Roger Mooking. You can find that at Pearson Airport. If you got a ticket, you can even eat there. And his latest LP is titled Edible, and we'll play you a little bit from that. Roger Mooking, a real pleasure. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ted. I appreciate it.
You know, so I was going through your background here, and I've seen you on television so many times. What a fascinating background. Your grandfather comes to Trinidad from China. Yeah. You're born in Trinidad, but then raised in Canada.
Yeah, in Edmonton, Alberta, yeah.
Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah. As my cousin calls it, the big pierogi.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, exactly. And yet I find it interesting because your influences in terms of your training, you were trained under Japanese, Chinese, French, and German chefs, as well as graduating from George Brown College here in Toronto. So you've tasted pretty much most of the world's foods, I think, by now.
Yeah, you know, and Trinidad is like one of the most multicultural islands in the world because there was large oil reserves there. So during colonization, a lot of people were trying to get at it, you know, so the Portuguese, the Spanish, the Dutch, the English, of course. So all of those cuisines kind of seeped into Trinidad as well as African and Indian influence for a variety of reasons. So, you know, all of those things exist in a melting pot in Trinidad, which is unique in the Caribbean. And then I moved to Edmonton, Alberta, and it's a lot of Ukrainian people.
Yeah. Very much. Absolutely. And so your grandfather migrates to Trinidad from China, opens a grocery store, and then opens probably one of the first Chinese restaurants in the Caribbean island of Bonaire. So am I to take it that he was your gastronomical influence?
Yeah, one of them, you know, and then he taught my father the ways and all of his kids. So, you know, my dad owned one of my grandfather's restaurants for 20 years after he retired. And my aunts and uncles, even to this day, still run catering companies in the Caribbean. So, you know, the food stuff is really in my blood. And I'm now the third generation carrying that torch. And now my niece is in culinary school as well. So maybe she'll be the fourth.
And how old were you? Do you figure when it dawned on you that you might be able to make a living from this? A decent.
I didn't know about a living, but I knew at 3 years old I want to be a chef. You know how like you ask little kids, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Billy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So my aunt asked that of me, and immediately 3 years old, I was like, "I'm gonna be a chef." And they're like, "What do you know about being a chef? We live this. This life is crazy." I'm like, "Yo, I'm gonna be a chef. Watch." And so here I am.
I wanted to be a doctor, and then they told me, you know, it's like 9 years of schooling. I said, "You mean after high school?" So I went into radio, made that a lot easier decision. Trust me on that one. Your restaurant, tell me about it, because most of us, unfortunately, aren't going to have an opportunity to go there unless we're flying. Tell me what I expect if I were to walk into Twist.
So Twist is it's called Twist by Roger Mooking. It's in Terminal 1 domestic departures. So if you're flying Air Canada domestically, you can see it there. And basically it's North American comfort food with a twist. So you kind of get all those classics. You get a chicken salad, but I freak it and I dress it in quinoa, deep fry, get a crunchy thing, make a nice dressing. You get a fried chicken, but it has influences from Southern America, from Japan, from China in there in a very simple way. So everything is very recognizable when you bite into it, or when you kind of dive into the experience of eating the dish and kind of breaking it down, it's very interactive and playful and drawing from global influences. So that's what that's about. But Ted, I've had a lot of people tell me that they want to go eat at the restaurant and they weren't planning on flying everywhere. So what they do, sneaky trick, is they go and buy a fully refundable ticket. They go in, they eat, and then they come out and refund the ticket. I've had a few people tell me that they do that.
You can't stop an empty stomach from breaking the rules,
right?
Yeah, exactly. When this pandemic thing all comes settled down, are there plans on opening outside of the restaurant property?
Well, I had a bunch of restaurants on the street for many, many years, and then I did the thing at Twist. So, right now I have no immediate plans to open any restaurants on the streets, but I am working on something very interesting that's just outside of the city. But that's more info to come on that later.
Okay, we'll talk to you about that later on then. Let's talk about the two shows that I mentioned that are available. I think Man Fire Food is on pretty much every morning on television. If not every morning, it's got to be at least 3 days a week. When did you stop shooting that? Did you stop shooting it when the pandemic hit?
Yeah, pandemic hit. We were. I was in Hawaii. We shot season 9, the last episode of season 9. We shot. I flew home the week after pandemic hit, and then travel has just been a nightmare ever since. So we've got kind of on pause mode.
Yeah. What I love about the show? I mean, it got some great barbecuing tips, but it's not just about the food and the preparation of the food. It's also about the equipment that prepares the food and the work. In many cases, these are handmade smoker pits and barbecue pits, and it's really quite amazing what people have come up with.
Yeah, from Zinjanthropus man to now, we've come a long way playing with fire for food. Yeah,
exactly, exactly. What is one of the weirdest things that anybody ever threw into a barbecue?
I don't know. What's weird?
Yeah, it's true.
I've had alligator. I've had
alligator, but I thought it was just the tail that they ate.
Well, you can harvest meat from the torso of the animal as well. But the alligator is the kind of thing that you cook it up, it tastes like chicken. It is really kind of like that. The texture is a little bit softer. But we've eaten everything: black chickens, quail, duck. Sturgeon. We've eaten sturgeon, whole sturgeon hanging and over the fires. If you can cook it on the stove, you can cook it on a fire. It's just a heat source.
I watch barbecue shows and I see people talking about barbecuing in Kansas City, how much different that is than barbecuing in Austin, Texas. And one says one's better than the other. What are your thoughts?
Well, barbecue is really a regional thing, and it comes down to nomenclature a lot. Like in Canada, if we say barbecue, basically you're in the backyard with your friends, and as long as there's either a propane, a charcoal, or a live fire going, it's considered a barbecue. If you go to the American South and you say barbecue, generally what they mean is low and slow whole hog barbecue, 12 to 16 hours, mopped and flipped and just very slow. If you go to Texas and say barbecue, they're going to be looking for brisket and beef sausages in the south and the northern parts of it, as well as pork ribs. So it really is a very regional thing. And then you go to China and it's like, char siu, and you go to Argentina and they do the asado and the crosses. So it really, really is regional and specific to the type of cuisine and the pocket that you're talking about it,
Okay. Speaking with chef host Roger Mooking, you can see him on Man Fire and Food on the Cooking Channel, and also you can see him. He is one of the host judges, chef judges at least, on Wall of Chefs, which is available Monday evenings, 10 o'clock on the Food Network. Some of the people who have appeared on that show, the 2 or 3 programs that I've seen, have really impressed me in terms of their abilities, because they're home chefs. They're home cooks. They're not even chefs, technically.
Yeah, we're always impressed. I know if I speak for myself personally, I'm always impressed. And sometimes they'll start doing something. I'm like, what are they doing? And then they kind of salvage it. They spin it. They flip it. They twist it. Boom, bam, boom. It turns into something really delicious. And, a lot of times they're schooling us as professional chefs, because this is where you learn the tricks and techniques is like, the grandparents, right? It's like they probably learned their home cooked techniques from their grandparents, and those grandparents learned it from their grandparents. And so there's a lineage there to honor. So just because we're chefs and quote unquote experts on the wall, I really always look to the competitors to see what they can teach me every single episode. And
you don't mind giving them the credit for it?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. We learn from everybody.
Well, you know yourself, not all chefs would. Not all chefs would say, oh yeah, well, I learned this from a guy who cooks part-time, in Butte, Montana.
It's okay. I give the same love. I give the same love to the janitor and the garbage collector as the CEO, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. What kind of stuff have you got in the Mooking backyard? Have you got a big smoker?
I got a live fire pizza oven. It's like this heavy duty thing from Italy. I have a couple kind of kettles. I have a brick system that I have like 30 different bricks that I move around and configure in a multiple of different ways. I can turn into an offset smoker, a direct heat grill, a medium heat grill. And then I have this counter that I kind of turn into various kind of contraptions as well. In this sand rock area that I can dig out trenches and then make little campfires to do marshmallows with the kids and stuff. So we're locked and loaded over here, Ted.
You sound like you are. Is there a favorite food that you have to work with, or to consume, for that matter? And are there some foods conversely that you don't like working with?
Well, it's interesting. At home, I never cook the same thing twice. So I'm always experimenting. The kids know by now that if they have something that I make that's really delicious, that they got to savor it, because they're never going to get it exactly the same way twice,
Right. You have 4 kids, right?
Yeah, 4 daughters.
Wow. And what's the age span?
14 to 8.
14 to 8. Good eaters, bad eaters, half and half eaters?
Well, they eat voraciously, all of them. And, the palate is a very interesting thing because it develops over time. Things that you may not like at 5 years old, you may love at 8 years old. And we've had that experience over and over with the kids. We've just been very focused on making sure we introduce one new thing to the household every week. So when we grocery shopping, we just buy something that we've never brought in the house before. Right. And we'll try it. Try it for us and for them, to expand our repertoires and our palates. And oftentimes I find with kids is the variation of a product may change a lot. So they might like coconut water, but they don't like coconut flakes. Or they might like real natural coconut jelly, like the soft before it goes to that hard white. They might like that, but they don't like the firm meat of the coconut, right? So oftentimes it's just playing with the different variations of a specific ingredient or product. And they might fall in love with it, and then they might fall in love with the next variation that 2 years ago that they didn't like. So we just keep reinforcing and reintroducing. But one thing we do not do is cook multiple meals to satisfy multiple personalities.
Yeah, with 4 kids, you'd be going nuts for sure.
Yeah, I know people who do that though, right? Neighbors and stuff, and I'm like, y'all got to get off that. Who's running the house?
Yeah, and I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. And whenever we go out for lunch or for dinner, she truly amazes me, because it'd be like 4 or 5 of us having lunch and dinner, and she reaches out and she just grabs some calamari. She'll grab like use the spicy beans that you use inside of a Bloody Caesar. She'll grab one of those and start munching on that. Like, she'll eat literally anything that you put in front of her. And I think, well, this is great. I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. We have this North American notion of like kids food and adult food. Even if you go to Twist, we don't have kids menu. Well, actually, we have a kids menu, but it's just an adaptation exactly of the adult menu, just portioned down. And there's little games on it and stuff, right? So, when I go to Indonesia, Jakarta, the kids there are eating shrimp paste and curry. When I go to Thailand and Malaysia, the kids there are eating rendang. They're not eating like French fries and hamburgers, you know? So this concept of like kids like certain kind of food is just, we've created that in North America. And then the kids are ruling the house off of that, right? So I think we're really doing a disservice to them.
What are your thoughts on plant-based foods that have become very popular in the last 5-10 years?
I mean, we eat a lot of plant-based, like a lot of vegetables. We eat some plant-based protein from the TVP to all of these plant-based burgers and stuff like that. But, you know, don't get it twisted. You put a nice piece of beef rib in front of me, that's going to get housed too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of both.
A little bit. I think, like my grandmother said, you know, all things in moderation. You know, I listen to my grandmother a lot, man. I think about her a lot because a lot of things that we read about now about nutrition and what nutritionists are saying, my grandmother was telling me that stuff like 25 years ago. You know, eat these kind of nuts for this, eat this type of herbs to help with digestion, eat this type of citrus to aid with detoxifying your blood. Like, all this stuff is like really fad now, but I've been hearing about that for 25 years from my grandmother. So, you know, I really hold what she says in very high esteem because she's never proven me wrong. So all things in moderation, Ted.
I know we think we're teaching so much to a generation that's already been taught to us. We just weren't really paying attention the way we should have been.
Yeah, my grandma was teaching me yoga when I was 8 years old. You know, she was teaching me about different types of breathing and headstands, and she was way ahead of her time in that sense for a woman in the Caribbean, very forward thinking. But you know, yoga just Madonna kind of blew up yoga in North America maybe 20 years ago, and it never turned back. But you know, my grandmother knew the ways, man. She knew the ways.
You got your kids you teaching them to cook yet?
Oh, yeah. They've been learning to cook from as soon as they could stand up on the counter and get in there. They love baking. They love participating. They love learning new dishes. And like I said, I never cook everything exactly the same way twice. So they're really learning to cook in a very adaptive style. So just the other day, my second daughter, she was like, okay, we're having a clean out the fridge day. She's like, okay, cool. This is my favorite. So she went in there, found a few things that she liked. She put them together in the pan, did this and like this, another pan going with another set of stuff going. And boom, she made up a dish and I tasted it and it was delicious, you know? And so really it's just about that adaptation and knowing, you know, knowing the heat, knowing the product, knowing the flavor profiles, and then running the ball from there. That's how every dish was created, you know?
Ted Woloshyn returns in a moment.
Hey, let me take a moment to tell you about my friends at Halenda's. They are the meat people. You know, I've been a fan of their products for years now, and without a doubt, they make some of the best sausage in Ontario. They are multiple award winners, having captured the Ontario's finest meat competition's coveted Award of Excellence on 3 occasions, in addition to dozens of individual product awards. Halenda's has also received the Grand Champion ribbon at the past 2 Royal Winter Fair's ready-to-eat meat snack competitions. So whether you're preparing a charcuterie board or a full-blown sit-down dinner for your friends or family, you'll find Halenda's award-winning products at fine meat shops throughout the province, now including selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland stores, along with their 7 Halenda's locations. Their barbecued kielbasa is my favorite. On a fresh bun with horseradish, it is out of this world. But don't just take my word for it. Judge for yourself. On your barbecue, in your kitchen, or straight from the refrigerator. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. Okay, let's head down to Kensington Market, 190 Baldwin, the home of Tom's Place. Tom Mahalik, good afternoon to you, sir. You know, we've had some brutally cold weather days, and I think to myself, thank God a couple of years ago I went down and bought myself some really thick knit sweaters, because boy, did they come in handy.
Teddy, there's nothing like a Tom's Place sweater. There's nothing like the Tom's Place corduroy trousers. We have a great selection of corduroy pants up to size 44, 46. We have an amazing selection of top coats that are made in Canada. Made in Canada, tailored in Canada, Italian woolens, spectacularly made. There's nothing like a great top coat. We also have outerwear with the hood, great selection of winter merchandise they would love to get rid of. This is the time to come and shop at Tom's Place. There is no time like this. And I like to remind our customers we also have 3-for-1 sport jackets. Teddy, we got it all, and we would like to sell it all.
190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. That's where you will find Tom's Place.
And you know it's gonna happen again. Never thought I could move thousands. Never thought jumping in the crowd would keep me grounded. Never thought I would find purpose in the mountains. Never thought I'd be making love to my accountant. Hey, hey, someone's looking out for me. Someone's gotta vouch for me. Hey, I'm a living legend in the making. I've been cooking cheddar. Brother's faces on the sound it's gonna happen again.
Never thought that it would come to this.
Now back to Ted Wallachin.
As I mentioned at the outset of the interview, we're speaking with Chef Roger Mooking, who's also a musician, a Juno Award winner. His latest LP is titled Edible, which makes perfect sense. Give me an idea. What is there a theme to the album?
This album is really like, I like to say it's a full body buzz. You know, that's why I called it Edible. So we're coming out of this pandemic time. Everybody's been cooped up. I wanted to put something out there that had a lot of energy to it, that just felt really good. You know, Ted, I wake up in the middle of the night with songs blasting through my head, and I realized that I've never heard that song anywhere before. So I get up late at night and I track down the thing on the memos until I can get in the studio and start doing it. So all the music that you hear on Edibles, every track started like that, straight out of my head, out of my bed. And then we started building the tracks, and the next thing you know, it's like I hear a melody that goes with that track, and then drop the melody. Then it's like, oh, I hear a verse that goes with that. Okay, so put that down. I hear a chord. Okay, put that down, and boom, boom. Next thing you know, we've crafted this whole song, and we produced it, and there it is. Now you got it in your hands.
When you're cooking and creating at home, are you listening to music? And if so, what music are you listening to?
I listen to a bunch of stuff, you know, so I go between mostly like podcasts, news, but outside of that, in terms of music, I listen to everything. Like I was just listening to a bunch of classical stuff. I really like Rachmaninoff. I was just listening to a bunch of B.B. King. I was listening to this new kid, Corday, put out an album that works with Dr. Dre. Royce the 5'9's been putting out some really great music lately. So, you know, I listened to a range. Snow Allegra, Sade's birthday was the other day. So, you know, I had to pull out some of those baby making hits, you know, so it's always a bunch of things. But I really love the podcast too. You know, as an artist, the output is only as good as the input, and you need to have 50 times the input to make one meaningful output, right? So I'm constantly feeding the source.
But how does Roger Mooking, musician, deal and work with Roger Mooking, chef?
You know, this is an amazing question, Tegas. For a long time, I thought I was like crazy, like bipolar, right? Because I didn't have an example of that. You know, I couldn't look out into the world and go, oh, there's John Legend. John Legend cooks and does music like at a high level, right? Or there was nobody I could look to like that. You know, maybe now there's Snoop, but, you know, Snoop's not going to go on Iron Chef, right? So I just realized, okay, so... Yeah, you never know. You never know. So I just realized one day I had an epiphany that I'm just an entertainment game, you know, so whether it's a restaurant that I'm creating, a cookbook, whether it's a TV show that's cooking, whether it's an album, whether I'm doing a live show with my band, all of those things are just entertainment. And when I started to formulate it in that way, I no longer felt like this kind of bipolar character, and I could go headlong into my path. And really the universe just kind of opened up after that.
Speaking with Roger Mooking, who you'll be able to watch every Monday evening, 10 o'clock on Food Network Canada in Wall of Chefs. It's an amazing collection of talented chefs from right across this nation.
Yeah.
You all get along, it seems, like a big society.
It is
because as much as you are competitors, it's not like, you know, your restaurant is right across the street from Lynn Crawford's or from someone else's restaurant, and you're not battling for the same dollar.
Yeah.
You're just in the same industry.
we're in the same industry. And on Wall of Chefs, we're all just judges. We're not competitors. Yeah. So there's not really this combative nature with us. And like you said, nobody's trying to fight for each other's dollar. And if we are, you know, everybody gets along. And mostly we've known each other for quite some time already. So it's all good, you know?
Yeah. Do you find it difficult to give somebody a failing mark?
You know, I always look at it like I always try and give constructive criticism. I'm not just going to drop somebody and kick them and keep them down, right? It's like, yo, this is what happened. This is what I think. This is you're hiring me for my opinion, right? Which I think is an interesting thing altogether. But so I give you my opinion, but I also will pepper it with some constructive criticism to get them out of that hole, and so they don't make that mistake again, or they find a new way, a new methodology to adapt to make an even better thing in the future.
Roger Mooking, I've enjoyed watching you, and I will continue to enjoy watching you perform. And one day I'll be able to sneak my way in with a bogus ticket to your restaurant at the airport, and I'll have my earpods on, listening to your latest CD, Edible. A real pleasure. You. Thanks for taking the time, man. It's been a real blast. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ted. I really appreciate it. You have a great day. All right.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you all for listening. We'll join you again next week.
Damn nervous, gone again. Tomorrow this gonna happen all again. Damn, forget it, I just wanna feel good. And not just a little, mean a real good. I wanna feel good. I'm talking real good.
The Ted Wallacham Podcast has been brought to you by Halenda's, the Meat People. Enjoy their award-winning products at selected Metro, Sobeys, Fortino's, and Foodland locations. Halenda's, the way sausage should taste. And Tom's Place. For the finest in men's clothing at unbeatable prices, it's Tom's Place at 190 Baldwin in the heart of Kensington Market. Tom's Place will suit you. The Ted Wallacham Podcast is produced by Joey Roselli. Technical production by Paul Gatt. I'm Becky Coles. Submit your questions and comments to ted@twmedia.ca.